And that's
Yeah.
it, because the best definition I ever heard about stand-up is it's making a group of strangers friends.
Yeah.
And that's what I just think life to me is. Unique New York. Brown cow. Brown cow.
Red leather, yellow leather, red leather, yellow leather, red leather. Okay.
Lanolin? Like sheep's wool? Are we? I think we're rolling.
This
Hey,
is
I,
wow. Oh,
Whoa,
oh my gosh.
wait, hold on.
I didn't know when this thing that was absolutely in our control and could stop and restart and record if we messed it up.
No, that doesn't happen. This is improv.
I didn't see you there.
We're back, and you know this guy, Dan Dapril, back in the house. Dude, I'm glad you came back.
Thank you for having me back. This studio is like it's so close to where I live.
It's so funny because every guest is saying that. Like, I had Barry on, and he's like, "Oh, it's so close to the crib," and I'm like, "It's so close for me too." So it's kind of serendipitous that it worked out that way. So shout out to Westchester Studios and Simmons Media. Our producer Matt's in the house, so I'm just trying to make him laugh. That's all. Every once in a while, I just look at his forehead because that's all I can really see from this angle, and I can just see how it moves, and I know if he's enjoying it.
I think I got a laugh before we started
We
recording. I
definitely
was
did.
very happy about that.
That was good. Yeah. So as comics, man, we're always looking. We're always watching.
It's horrible. It's totally horrible.
It really is.
My girlfriend says she doesn't like going to comedy shows in part because, like, when you do the hang after, she's like, if there's just not a one non-comic there, everyone's competing to see who can make that person laugh the most.
It's so true. Yeah, I mean, like, that's anytime I go into a mic, I'm like Jason Bourne. I'm like reading the license plates. Like, where are the civilians?
Right.
It's like,
There are two modes. There's that, and then, like, I'm not going to give off one single vibe that I've ever told a joke in my entire
100%.
life.
That's the magic you're seeing behind the scenes.
Yeah.
How did David Copperfield make that elephant disappear? I was at a mic on Monday out in Lancaster. Shout out to Phantom Power POV Comedy. Really great room. Like, if you've never been to an open mic, it's a grab bag. It's you don't know what you're gonna get. But this room was all people who were going up there that had written jokes and were trying things out and had created a persona for themselves in some avenue.
Right.
And it was just interesting to sit there and watch everybody. And I don't go there a lot, so even some of the people I hadn't seen in a while, it was cool to watch some of them have different jokes that I'd never heard before or just develop over time. And it was great. And then when I got up, it was mostly comics, but there was like one supportive girlfriend.
Ooh, mistake.
First front row center. And then in the back, there were some guys who were supporting a person coming for the first time to do stand-up.
Again, you can always get them on the first time because they don't know any better.
That's right. And then there were some comics in the back that I really respected. And so it was kind of interesting, too, now that I'm kind of replaying in my head, as I was telling the jokes, I knew the girlfriend, she's super supportive. And I almost didn't want to put my phone there because I'm like, she laughs so good that it would be, I don't know that I would want it to be closer to the new guys that had never seen me before.
Right.
But I could, in my head, it was like they were dark, like they were the 2020 Witness kind of silhouette. But I could see like the forehead. I could see the movement that I was like, oh, they're enjoying this. And then the back, there was a pretty Alan Massenberg. Who
It's a great comic.
Great
Very funny
comic. So, and he was in the back. And I could see him in sort of I've been to a million of these.
Yeah.
But every once in a while, when I was telling a certain tag, I would look back there and I could see him enjoying it at some level. So it was like, there's some satisfaction to all of that.
Yeah, and your listeners probably listen to you enough to know that open mics are just a brutal exercise. It's like, it would be like if when you went to the gym, like the gym guys got off their machines and started like hitting you with pool noodles. And that added level of difficulty to get into shape with the thing that you need to be in shape.
And it's also like, that's a great analogy because it's also like you're like, oh, I'm here to do this one machine, and now everybody and their brother is on that machine.
You're right. That is exactly what it's like. It's like you try to get like, I'm just going to do a quick press, and they're like, yeah, okay, so you're 30th on the list.
Yeah, I'm gonna go have a couple cigarettes and then I'll come back.
You're right. Everyone would smoke outside the gym if you had to wait for the machines.
That's how it's funny because the comparisons to an open mic, like as a teacher, I mean, if you're a teacher out there, I mean, you've already been to an open mic. Like, you've told the lesson didn't land. You've told the joke that didn't land. So I've gotten so comfortable with things like not landing with kids over the years that it's just like, I think that's what gave me the guts to get up and do it, because I'm like, oh, dude, I do 5 shows a day. You kidding me? I was like, I did 5 headlighting sets today, and they flopped all
Right.
5.
Yeah, and you have to do different shows every day, basically, in front of like an audience that already knows a lot of your shtick too.
Yeah,
So
and
they're
you get
like,
4 minutes. You get 4 minutes to relax in between. There's no green room.
yeah, right.
You're just there.
They don't even give you drink tickets. That's the
No.
problem.
You kidding me? There's $1.50 for a soda in the back of the room. Or actually, on Teacher Appreciation Week, they brought the Dixie cups out, and the 2-liter of generic sodas came out.
you
The
go.
double cut pizza.
There you go. Do they at least give you free coffee still? Is there a coffee pot? Oh,
There's
man.
a coffee pot, but you would have to bring
You
the
have to,
coffee and the filters, and probably should bring the water too. It's actually by the time this airs, I'll be a free man. Actually, next Tuesday is going to be the first day I'm no longer contractually obligated to be at school for the summer. So it's like an exciting time.
Yeah, congratulations. I remember it from when I was on the other end of the
Yes.
school experience, and I'm sure it feels just as
Oh,
fun.
it feels just as good. Yeah, and this will be 22 decades in the books.
Wow,
A
congrats.
long time.
Yeah.
I was like reflecting on that. I was like, it's been my big joke. Like 20 and out, we should have a pension option, just like our servicemen. I believe, not that I believe we're any better than our servicemen,
No.
but I believe that 20 and out. There's generationally we're different. If you put in the work day in and day out for 20 years, I mean, to ask us for another 15 and expect us to be able to dig in when things are changing, like it's not like the same game. It's not checkers, it's chess, but like every period, the pieces in the board change.
Interesting.
It's crazy. I mean, it's just there's so like what I give a kid in response to what the stimuli I give a kid that I'm expecting him to engage has changed. The goalposts have changed.
Well, yeah, they probably are always changing. I mean, they've changed. They changed when we were coming up with the Common Core stuff, and now that's been rejected and all that. You know a lot more about that than I do.
But I mean, even not even like curriculum, but just like any let's say generic curriculum, but like what a teacher has to give a student to get them to engage and to be curious and wonder about anything, whether it's math, science, Spanish. It's harder, and it's with the level of AI and things we can ask Rosie for.
Yeah.
I mean, like now that we're living the Jetsons, I mean, it's like, what is there to wonder about? We don't wonder about anything. We just look it up. That's why like I love when I get into debate with friends and like, we know we could look at our phones, but it's just so much more fun to be like the old men and the Muppets like thing and just like, because that was an afternoon for people.
Yeah.
Like what could be solved in the 0.36 seconds it takes ChatGPT or Google to kick out a response.
Yeah. That's where like a lot of fun conversations and experiences happened when you didn't know something and you were either arguing over it or you didn't know, and so you like had a conversation about it. Now it can be like, my own go-to is always, how old is Meryl Streep? I don't know. And in fact, I forget, but you guys could literally find that out in 2 seconds.
She's the amount of years that it takes to lick to the center of a Tootsie Roll Pop.
Right.
The world may never know.
I'll never know. I've looked this fact up a dozen times. I'll never know how old Meryl Streep is because I know I can just access that information at the tip of my finger. So it's a problem,
Yeah. And it's amazing because it's like even with all of that influx, things like things don't change. Like there's still things that happen and problems, but like even though we have all the solutions, it doesn't mean we're gonna use them.
Yeah,
I love being able to go on social media and feel like I'm getting a slice of the world, in a couple things, but at the same time that. It's scary because that world's being crafted for me by who? I don't know.
Yeah, that's the scariest thing about social media is that like now sometimes like 13-year-olds decide the take on something. Yeah. It doesn't happen that often, but every once in a while it's like, oh, the kids have teamed up and now you have that great joke about slang. I wouldn't tell it on, your joke, but like, so they just decide that this is how we're saying something now.
Yeah,
and it's just how
that's
it goes.
And that's the cool thing about like language. When I used to teach in the elementary levels, it's like either descriptive or prescriptive. And because language is descriptive, it means it's poetic. Like it can change and morph. Prescriptive is all the rules we think we need to do, saying well instead of good, and all that other there, all of that stuff. But like. The fact that you're getting to a part where it's like descriptive, and then we were joking before the air, but like even things like pronouns, like when I have a kid in Spanish class, like there's legitimate when I was teaching the kids who wondered in 5th and 6th grade because they still wonder because screen time limits, but they were asking stuff about like pronouns and language as I was teaching because I was like the fun uncle doing the world language buffet, and Spanish has started. Spanish, which is a very prescriptive language. I mean, they have a Royal Academy. They have like
They have the como está ustedes.
yes, but
Yeah.
like but even just to make a change, you won't see supersize pop up in the. They don't have like here we have dictionaries are businesses, Merriam-Webster, whatever. Those are businesses. Spain doesn't have that. It has a government-controlled organization that dictates what gets into the language officially.
Oh.
So like it's a process. You can't just. So they're trying to keep it as prescriptive as possible.
I get it. They're like they're in there being like, "Bring me the head of
Yes,
Pitbull."
yeah, it's like weird.
He's inventing too many Spanglish words in his songs. Dispatch the Spanish Royal Guard. These are not words. Bring me.
Despacito.
Yeah, thank you. I couldn't remember it. Bring me
like,
Bad Bunny.
Yeah, but there's like so many. Like I don't know. It's interesting because you can't fight it. I mean, there's a big debate: does culture affect language or the reverse? And I don't know the answer to that. But Noam Chomsky was a dude out of Philly that used to like. He was a linguist, and that was his whole thing: was does culture affect the language, or does language affect the culture? Because Spain's view is almost the opposite. Spain's view is almost saying, oh, we got to control the language because that'll help us control the culture.
Right.
And so it's just differences in worldview. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what, because I don't get politics. I really don't understand. But at the end of the day, I had to just convince myself and tell myself, this is just the way other people see the world. And they're creating the fairy tale to tell that story, because that's all they're doing is they're painting a picture of the world that makes sense to them through a story that makes sense to them. And it's just a different story. It's no right or wrong versus your or mine. I mean, whether it's the Quran or the Bible or the Torah, like at the end of the day, it's
got to be written in English. You got it, brother. I'm with you. Let's do it.
Just co-sign that.
Yeah, no, I'm just kidding. I know what you mean, though.
But yeah, and now, like I don't know. And it's Pride Month, right? I mean, now we're in. I mean that.
Here we go. Yeah, right.
Pride Month, like to me, as like, listen, I'm straight, but I'm literally the only straight person in my family, so, and I that's one of the reasons I thought you'd be an interesting guest too, because one of the things I first remember about you is you telling a joke about your lesbiaunt.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
And so I was like, oh, you grew up with it, because I didn't meet many people in my life who had people in their lives, especially semi-immediate family, that were gay, never mind someone who's like mom, dad, and mom's younger brother were. So it's like, I'm like, no, I'm never going to meet somebody like that. I'm a unicorn.
It was really weird. I was shocked when you started talking about that, like on stage when I would see you out and be like, oh, that's what are the odds?
Right.
But yeah, my story, I mean, I'm sure your listeners know yours by now. Mine was that like my mom and dad got divorced, and then for like financial reasons, my mom's sister moved in with us.
Like her actual biological sister.
I'm sorry, yes, correct. Her biological birth assigned sister at birth. Sister.
I only say that because like I was like, oh, like I had to, like, those terms for me were very loose: aunt, friend, roommate,
Sure,
sister.
I understand. I totally get it, but there was none of
Very
that.
descriptive language for me.
My mom was very straight. I remember when I was a kid, that was when she was dating, and she brought home a lot of like jerks.
Yeah.
So that's a very straight woman thing to do. I think she might have been happier if she had tried some women. But my aunt, my aunt came and moved in and lived with us. And so that was like my teenage years, my mid to late teenage years. We're living with my aunt, who was my Aunt Aileen, who's like a butch lesbian.
Was she? And so like her mannerisms, all that. Like if people met her, if your friends were over,
No doubt in
was
your
it
mind.
obvious? Like
No doubt in your mind. They're just like it's visible in her behavior and her.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe now that she's older, but I can't ever remember a time. It was so not. I didn't even really clock it when I was a kid because it just seemed so normal.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like
your friends weren't coming over.
I don't want to throw my aunt under the bus. I don't know that she was having no success in her love life, but I just wasn't seeing it. Like, I don't know. I should ask her. I shouldn't be like, she wasn't dating anybody.
She wasn't bringing the softball team over.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't see that.
But yeah,
like,
so that makes sense. She kept it private or whatever.
But her, it's just like I will say sometimes, like people will say, like, wasn't it, you know, like hard growing up without like a big masculine influence in your life. And it's like, oh no, I had a huge masculine influence in my life.
Yeah.
It was a rollerblading lesbian. Like I did not lack for like an aggressive like person who like cared about the rules and like would yell when something was wrong. So, you know, I mean I love her to death. She's great. But yeah, so it was very much
I mean,
of
do
a
you remember the
stereotypical-
moment like when like that you knew like was it said, was this all understood that she's like how did you even know what that meant?
man, she moved out with her now wife, and then that's sort of when I knew. I was like, well, she's moving in with just like another one. Hey, Mom, I got a weird question for you. Do you ever think Eileen? And she's like, yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
what?
that makes sense.
Yeah. And then it was like the movie Memento, where like everything fell into place, and I was like, right. Oh, sure. But I just, you know, I don't know. I guess I had that naivete. I thought it was like you could just be, I mean, you can, but it's just like you could be some type of way and it not be indicative.
Yeah.
You know, like all the clues were there, but when you're a kid, it's sort of like what you said. It's like, you know, they're taught to learn. And so it's like when you're not picking up on those clues because they're literally in the house with you every day, it can be funny to look back and go, how did I not see this? It's like every stereotype was checked, you know, flannel, softball, amoeba. You know, so it's like, but it's funny because, you know, when you're a kid, it just doesn't. It wasn't gay. It was just my aunt.
It's funny 'cause I was trying to think about like when I knew. And I remember a conversation. I don't know if like, you know, it gets fuzzy when you're going way back in your, you know, memory. But I remember my mom like sitting me down at some point and saying like, do you know what it means to be gay? And I remember telling her that it was someone who was sick. And I was like, and then it was like, then I'm trying to think, well, why was that? And I can remember like this kid in the neighborhood because I would basically lived at my grandma's house a lot because my mom was working or whatever. And so I'd play in the neighborhood. You go around with kids, you know, whatever. And so I remember this one time Tommy was sick, couldn't come out. And so we went to the door because that's what he did. He knocked on people's doors and said, hey, come out and play.
Yeah.
And he said he couldn't come. And so I just remember all the kids calling him gay.
Yeah.
So then I was like, oh, okay. That was the definition was set in my brain because of how descriptive language is.
Right.
Like they were using it as an insult on the playground. And so that was how my brain clocked it. And then I was like, oh, okay, that's definition 1 in the Yoder Merriam-Webster dictionary. And so then when my mom's introducing me to the other definition, I'm like, wait a second. No, and now I'm confused because I love the Flintstones and they were always having a gay old time. So like, that's fun, right? Like, so now I'm like all of these definitions.
Right. Trying jumbled up in your head. Yeah.
Well, even you think of where in Westchester, what's the main street in Westchester?
Gay Street.
Gay Street, right? Because you're happy on that street. There's a lot of businesses, a lot of things to do.
Sure.
Right. And it's just, and to me, that's so fascinating because like, I don't remember, there was no like war room in our house where we were strategizing, maybe a closet, but there was no war room. But I just remember there was an understanding that, you know, maybe we don't share everything in the house.
Yeah.
Because I mean, kids do, like even my kid will go in and say, you know, who knows what they'll say when the teacher asks them stuff about whatever. Like you learn a lot about yourself when you hear your kids describe you.
Oh my God, I can only imagine.
You know,
that's like the true, you know,
so
view
like,
of you.
So it's like, I guess you have to get ahead of it or be proactive at some point. And, you know, obviously, but it's like now that we have Pride Month, I'm like, dude, when I grew up, we had Hyde Month. It was like, and that was every month. And it was just the only time I felt like, and I think I mentioned this in the past, like we went on a gaycation once where we went to P-Town. Have you ever heard of this place?
P-Town.
P-Town. It's Provincetown, like the full name, but they shorten it to just P-Town.
Okay.
It's at the tip of Cape Cod. So you have to go like all the way up through Massachusetts, and it's like gay Disney World.
P-Town. It's gay Disney World.
Yeah, it's like, and the fact that like, it's like, you know, what's the main, when you go to Magic Kingdom, what's the main strip called when you walk down to the castle?
Oh, what is it?
Main Street, USA.
Yeah.
So in that regard, like walking down the street there was like, you know, Gay Stream USA. You know, it's like because you could hold hands. Pride flags are everywhere, not just during a month.
Oh, is this in the 90s too?
Yeah,
like that's pretty rare.
Dude, fanny pack and was like neon, like
that's cool.
You know, suit and full gear. But I just and that was the first time I could see my mom's like holding hands, and we'd go to a restaurant and it wouldn't be like, wondering if the waitress was we were gonna have to what story we were gonna create because Colleen was a little older than my mom, so then there was this dynamic was is it grandmama and grandson?
Sure.
Is
So there was
it-
an age gap?
There was an age gap.
Disgusting. This is horrible. I thought we were going to talk about like legitimate things here, Jay, but an age gap?
But like we just never and I remember we went to an Airbnb and it was definitely a gay guy that was the caretaker, and I just remember being 9, 8 years old, and my thing was baseball, so I always had like a tennis ball and stuff, so I was probably like I would throw it on a roof and have it like come down to me and like react and catch.
So you were pissing off all the neighbors.
Yeah. So, but while I'm doing it at this Airbnb in the parking lot aside, I could hear this dude out his window, and it was like mantra, and then I thought he was being possessed by spirits, but it turns out he was like meditating and just doing and like some of those things. But to me, I was like, I think this is the ghost hunters.
Yeah.
But so I just remember, I just have these little snippets of memories that are just sometimes askew because of just the way the world was and how it wasn't as open now. Like now everybody's got a pride flag flying around this month, and I don't know,
Yeah.
it's just interesting.
Not Target.
Is that true?
Stupid. Yeah, well, they're being all dumb about all the performative companies are now performing the other way because
Okay, that makes sense.
we're taking it all down.
Yeah. We're not
this
making
stupid
America
joke.
gay again. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I think although I think that it's cool that now it's a second hand, like things that we understood. I think more people understand. Like you said, like people would just throw around the word gay any which way. It would be used as a slur. It would be used as just a generalized insult towards people that you knew weren't. Like it was just a whole different thing, and now it's just an identity. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's basically like it's really been reclaimed. And thank you, Jay, by the way, for Pride Month. Having just another straight guy on. Plenty of gay stand-up comedians. We have mutual friends.
I know, but but here's the thing, like, and maybe this is part of it. I think the issue isn't gay people. The issue is straight people, and
the issue is straight people
it's like-
almost always.
But like just the whole concept of I watched this Oprah clip recently, and it was a clip from the 90s, and I remember this because again things weren't really talked about. So when things came up in the 90s, all I was hearing gay was "Don't Ask, Don't Tell" was that era.
Yeah.
And then things like Ellen coming out as straight, which was what this clip was referring to because Oprah had gone on the show, gone on the Ellen show, and so it was one of these Q&A times where a woman in the audience stood up and had a question, and it was this young blonde girl basically saying like she didn't know how Oprah could call herself a Christian and go on the Ellen show and support that when it says that that in the Bible. And I just remember thinking like this is why that blonde girl seemed innocent, just seemed Jane Doe 90s.
Sure.
And it's like my brain at that part was like, oh, that's like everybody we meet, I have to assume is programmed that way.
Oh, yeah. Some people,
You know what I mean? Because then Oprah was like, listen, now we have a different definition of Christian. Like she spanked her beautifully back with like, well, I just think we have a different definition of Christian. I believe God created Ellen. I believe God created you. I believe that it's neighborly to love thy neighbor, and those are my neighbors. So like it was just, there weren't enough Oprahs, and there were way more of those blonde girls.
Yeah, totally.
And so I think in my brain, as someone who's, that was my parent. It wasn't just like, not to like, I should have paused that. Sorry, editing. So in my brain, I was just like, because it was my family. It was at that point, it was my mom. I didn't know my dad yet. He was still doing the whole second wife, second life thing. And so like, but I was telling Barry about that last week. Like, how did I not know my dad was gay earlier? Because when I did spend time with him when I was younger, we were watching reruns of taped soap operas. Like that was his go-to. He would tape all the soap operas while he was at work all day, and then he would come home and watch, and we'd all watch them on the couch.
There you go. So there were signs.
There were signs everywhere. There's signs, but like, so at that point, I was just protecting my family, I think. But I can just remember we watched Greg, for some reason, one of the nuns put on Greg Louganis for like art class or something. It was like something so random that was just rolling the movie day. She didn't want to work. Maybe the computers weren't, I don't know.
You know all about that this time of year.
I know, right? And then all of a sudden she just pops on. I could hear all the commentary of the girl. Like I heard this girl, Lisa, in my class, just like, like anytime there was an innuendo in the USA movie that they made about him, you could just hear it, and I'm like, okay, yeah, that's why we don't tell people, because those people are here.
Yeah.
And I think that, but you said you had, that wasn't your experience with hearing of gay or things like that.
No, I mean my experience is a little different because my aunt is such a unique individual. So like she is not like I wasn't prepared for like the new world of like sensitivity.
Yeah.
Because my aunt's from Delaware County.
Delco.
From Delco from like the 60s. So she's real. So it's like there's like at one point I used to have a podcast with a very funny comic, Dave Permiano. We did a live weekly podcast where we kind of riffed on the news. And my aunt would complain sometimes because my podcast partner, it was still stuck in the 90s when it came to using the word gay to mean, oh, that's lame or stupid. Yeah. He didn't do it all the time, but every once in a while his like old manness would slip out and he would say it. Now I don't, but he like, hey, it's whatever. I know he's a good guy and I know it doesn't mean any harm by it. But she was like, you got to get him to stop saying that. And I was like, well, you write him and tell him yourself. And she was like, yeah, I just find it to be. And then she just casually spilled out a word for special needs people. Right. And I was like, wait a second. Hold on here. Like, you have to. And she's like, no, it's like, and she's just very like that. She isn't like no holds barred. Like, one of the things, do you remember, he just kind of happened. George Santos, the lying, he's the lying congressman. And I know that doesn't narrow it down. Yeah. He like really, like he lied so much, like he got kicked out of Congress. He like lied about who he was. He had like a whole fake identity and he was defrauding a bunch of people. Whoa. Yeah. And he was gay. And he came out in the middle of like.
Wait, was this a senator or a soap opera?
Maybe a house.
Was this All My Children?
Yeah, right. This was one of your dad's. Yeah. This was one of your dad's soap operas. This really happened. The guy's name was George Santos.
Yeah, I do. Now I vaguely know. Yeah.
My aunts were visiting while the scandal was unfolding, and he had not come out of the closet. Right. But, he had a way about him, that obviously made my aunt wonder. And she was like, we were sitting watching the news. Her and her wife had come to visit. And we were sitting watching the news and she was like, he's gay. And I was like, you can't just say that in this day and age. You can't just diagnose somebody as being gay. And she was like, oh, come on. Like, I know I'm gay. He's gay. And I was like, this is not PC. Like, you can't really, don't say this outside of the house. And she's like, this is bullshit, dude. Come on, use your eyes. Like, use your eyes. What are you doing? Don't pretend you're so woke and so cool that you can't see from his mannerisms and the way that he walks. And for me, honestly, like, I didn't know the guy was borderline. Like, it could just been a guy. I wasn't really thinking. And I was like, Eileen, listen, I don't know. I have no idea. And she's like, come on. She calls her wife in. She's like, look at him. Is he gay? And Jane, her lovely woman, she's like, oh, yeah, really gay. Look at him. And she's like, admit it. And it was like, I was like, I'm leaving. I'm walking away from this conversation. 2 months later, he comes out of the closet. So like,
John Quinones was out back with his hamburger waiting for you to say it so he could come in.
He was like, but she came out. And so my aunt, I realized like at the time, I thought she was being like very problematic.
Yeah.
She was trying to like give me like a real, like we can't do this. This is 1990s. It turns out she was just really trying to get me to believe in myself, trust my instincts, be honest.
Oh, the gaydar, yeah.
Yeah. So you're learning about yourself, but not in the way that you would expect your lesbian to teach you a lesson.
I feel like everybody must. I feel like all my friends. My biggest fear was that my friends were going to find out. Yeah. I was like, how could they not know? I'm not friends with 99% of them anymore.
Well, yeah.
And the one guy I am still friends with, he's actually going to be a guest on the podcast. We just talked.
Cool.
He lives in North Carolina.
Nice.
But he transferred my school in 8th grade, and that was hard because my school had like 23 kids in the class. Like, I mean, everybody knew each other. When I broke in, I moved in like 3rd or 4th grade, and it was hard for me by the time 8th grade came around. I was just starting to get part of like get grandfathered into the crew. So I'm like, I felt bad for this guy because he was the first new kid since I came in 3rd grade. So I'm like, oh, and he kind of sat off to himself. His school had been on strike. He had gone to a public school that was on strike. And there were some other things happening that I'll wait till the episode with him comes out. But like, it turns out he had a mom who was gay. And we were like friends for a while. And then it was just little things were happening. And I don't know if he knew before I knew. So I'm interested to find out. But like, there was just a moment where I think we both realized it about each other. And I was just like, whoa, there's someone else. Like that, like to me was important. You know, they talk about representation. I felt like I had this story inside me that I wasn't allowed to tell anybody.
Right, sure.
And it was my story, and I had no one to relate to. I had no one, and so it wasn't until things like Ellen or things like Modern Family. Like, man, I wish Modern Family came out earlier. Like, just something. That's why a lot of my stand-up when I talk about it is me being bitter that I'm like, oh, you know, I had to stumble and crawl so these guys could walk and run. Like these kids now, like my daughter's, you know, has a friend in class that has 2 dads, and she just came home, was like, oh yeah, can you call one of Kyle's dads? So like, I'm like, what? This is crazy.
Yeah.
It's just, but it's beautiful. It's not crazy.
It is.
It's beautiful.
It's the world, right? It's like we have a long way to go, but we have come a long way because when we were kids, what the gay community was trying to overcome was more basic, fundamental things like acknowledge us as here, give us some of the equal rights of marriage, and we just got to keep fighting.
And that's part of that's because now I want to share the story. Now I'm all about sharing the story. Like even in my stand up, sometimes it's like, and I get such a mix. The room can really change quickly. It's hot when I switch topics from something like that's more benign or like teaching in middle schoolers to that. So it's always interesting to me in a room, but it's like I like it. Now I want to be persistent about it. I'm trying to understand what is that quietness about, because there is, as far as we are now and as great as it is, there is a lot of work to be done. Like even the other day I shared that video of Oprah and that thing, and I put not a heavy caption, a light caption, and it was just basically saying like, oh yeah, Pride Month, Hyde Month. I was kind of floating that tag out and expressing that like, oh, I thought everybody was like this woman, that's why we had Hyde Month. We need more Oprahs. And it was like that. It was simple. It was the things I'll get engagement on and likes and comments on. And this one, it was just like so light compared to some of the other. I'm like, wow, people wouldn't even engage with this. It was a great clip. It was great progressive. It wasn't anything political or whatever. It was just simple. And I'm like, wow, either the algorithm wasn't pushing it out.
Maybe that's,
you know what I mean? Like, cause that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know that it was the people for me not seeing it and not reacting with it. I put out a simple meme that had nothing, but it was Trump in the meme speaking Spanish. And I was like, oh, funny. This is what it's like listening to Spanish kids give oral exams, during the week. And it literally, TikTok allowed it 2 views in the first half hour. I have views that were getting thousands of views. It got 2. I could have rolled down my window and yelled it out on the highway here and gotten more coverage. Yeah. So it's just, so it says to me like, oh, we got to be careful with all of that. You talk about the algorithm. Nobody knows. It's like saying the cloud.
They push things. Yeah.
But like, it's funny. It's interesting. But even in my stand up now, like I'm big in working it into every set I'm doing because it's a part of me, and I want to share that. And I think it takes people normalizing. It takes people not gay normalizing being with and around and being raised potentially by gay people. That I think is the only ticket to moving the thing. If it's just gay people saying, "Oh, we're proud," I feel like that's not going to go as far as people like, "Oh, are you really an ally?"
Right. It takes everybody for pride. You have to be proud that of who you are, of where you're from, of the people that you love.
And that's what this episode is. Proud Boys. The Proud Boys.
That's right. And this is a Proud Boys episode of 2 straight men talking about gay pride and how really you don't need a gay person to represent that, right? 2 big, fat, straight guys are perfect for this. Why not? This is great. Dude. Why get Joe G or Sarah Bell or
Jim
any
Gillespie,
of the
anyone?
Jim Gillespie, sure, any of the great comedians that we know who are gay. No, get me. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Oh, well, you know what? If nothing else, it was a lesson in descriptive language.
Sure.
And I'm looking forward to the bit of the part that nobody's even going to hear because we cut it
That's
out.
okay. I'm going to do that one as a joke. That's funny.
But yeah, I think it is. I think it. People say stuff about Pride Month, so I wanted to have, I wanted to have a talk with someone, a genuine talk at some point of it being kind of unfiltered, and I think that's what we did today. That accomplished.
Well, that's what you're going to get from me. It's funny that you mentioned your set. You were like, getting people tighten up. I'm like, oh, that doesn't happen when I mention mine. But I'm like, maybe because I've already told them I'm drunk and on drugs and I've been doing insane things and I've heckled people about their private parts. And then I go, and also, by the way, I have a lesbian aunt. And they're like, oh, that's benign and actually kind of cute.
Well, I think they're waiting to see how I feel about it. So I think that's what
Yeah.
is because that's a lot of times with stand-up and acts is like, anything. It's like they're trying to understand how you're feeling about it
Sure.
as a speaker to know how to kind of react to. So it's interesting. And I think, too, it's also challenging. It's challenging to people and things that they may not want to think about right then.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And well, it's also loaded. I have a tag about a drag queen that I knew in a joke about my aunt.
Yeah.
And I wrote that joke, I don't know, 7-8 years ago. We get laughs all the time. It was the best part. It was my favorite part of the joke, and it was the one that got the most laughs. And it changed as that became a political topic, as that became something that people cared about. Like, people didn't care about drag queens back in the day. Like, everybody, like, Trump dressed in drag. No one gave a crap.
Yeah.
It was just like, but
You
so
can say shit.
I don't know why I censored myself there.
'Cause I do that to people.
I'm just, it's the wholesome vibes coming from you. I'm like, I better not say shit. But anyway, yeah, Trump did that shit. It wasn't a problem for anybody until it became a problem for some people because it was convenient to yell about something and it got you a lot of clicks to yell about something. So now I do it and people tighten up. And I think sometimes it's not even like, you can't even be like, oh, bigot, 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 bigot. You could just like, oh, you're just not comfortable because you don't know where this is going to go because this is such a charged topic.
Yeah, it could all be a distraction. It's all a distraction from probably something else.
Well, I think that's the nice thing about it, like some of your jokes and like comedians, I say some, you're a comedian where it's like you're bringing people together. You know what I mean? Like, so that's, I think, where there's still a lot of value in stand-up, even though it's very easy to be jaded and be like, oh, we just sell drink tickets. We're an elaborate performance to sell drinks. I don't know. I think that it to get a hesitancy in something like that and to bring a crowd together in laughter about it, not at it, right? I think that's kind of brings people
100%.
together.
That's what I do with the autism, with everything. And that's it, because the best definition I ever heard about stand-up is it's making a group of strangers friends.
Yeah.
And that's what I just think life to me is. Life was always about the strangers who came into my life and became friends.
Sure.
Right? Whether they were uncles, friends, whatever we want to call them. Those people, made me part of who I am. That's important. I wouldn't change that. And there's no way to replicate the life I had and how I grew up. It's impossible. And it's like, people I have multiple times be like, oh, it's a sitcom. And I'm like, it is. Now that I think about it, to me, it was just normal. Like you said, just normal. But I'm like, oh, that, when I look at all of the layers, I'm like, that's crazy. I was handed double rainbow parents who were like, went from double beard to double rainbow. And then it was like the whole, and now like being a teacher of like world languages growing up in Scranton, having an autistic daughter, I'm like, I feel like I was given all of those things and the ability to speak well, that I need to use that. And now having a platform and having that. So it's like, if I can make a group of strangers friends, and that's why I started doing this podcast too. So like, that's the name of the game. So get out there and talk about gay people. I don't know. But
yeah, no, I think that's great. I think that you're doing a great thing here on the podcast.
I love how you.
I'm sorry, I can't. I'm trying to set up an insincere thing. I can't.
No, but I mean, I don't think it.
thank
But
you
I'm
for
just saying,
having
like, I think it doesn't have the story arc that it always, that I think it deserves yet, because it's a story that hasn't been told enough.
No, I think you're right. I think a lot of times movements for civil rights often lament how like moderate the people that should be their allies on the to their right, so to speak, are not helping out, even though they're not the far right crazies that are opposing them. So I think that I think it's your point is well made that it's like it's good to be visible in that regard and be like, hey, that you know allies speak up, don't just be silent and be like, oh, I'm cool with gay people, so what do I have to tell be part of pride?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like
Yeah, but it's not.
Voice
Yeah,
your
it's not
support.
even. Yeah, exactly.
voice your support.
And the fact that there's somebody else out there that's maybe, has someone like in their life like that I think that they don't know how to support. I think that happens. And listen, hey, Pride's way better than like Cinco de Mayo. I mean, why does Chili's have $5 margaritas on Cinco de Mayo? Do you know?
Because
they're delicious.
Yeah, I was gonna say because otherwise you're wolfing down microwave food. I don't know.
But like the whole, as a Spanish teacher, I end up having to talk about Cinco de Mayo every year because it's not just like, hey, let's have a taco and a margarita. It was civil rights. That was so this holiday came into the U.S. because Chicanos, who were like first generation Mexican Americans, they were fighting for their civil rights. Zoot Suit riots or a thing back in the day where, people who were Americans but were Latino
Big Bad
descent,
Voodoo Daddy, if you remember that song.
Yeah, and they were like, finally having wealth for themselves, so they would dress nicely and they would become targets because of that. And so they had these rights and they were supposedly citizens, but they found themselves still fighting in the same way that the original Cinco de Mayo battle was. Mexico had been independent for maybe a couple decades, but they had borrowed money from the three big powers, Spain, France, and England, and they couldn't pay it back, so they asked for an extension. But France kind of crossed their fingers when they say, yeah, no problem, and they sent their French Foreign Legion in to try to get to Mexico City, and it was foiled by a basic militia of people, of citizens who knew the terrain. There was a bad storm that day, and they kind of used guerrilla warfare tactics, and basically the Little Giants beat the Kansas City Chiefs in this game running the annexation of Puerto Rico. But it was just, and so because of that, we were at civil war at the time, because if they got in there, well, France had already been supplying the South, so you could even make an argument that it had a bigger issue could have been at play, and we couldn't help at the time because we were fighting ourselves, and so they had to stand up for themselves, and they did, and against all odds. And so when Chicanos, years later, are looking back to their Hispanic culture, yet their American culture, they were drawing the same energy of their ancestors who stood for their rights at this Battle of Puebla, and that's why Chili's has $5 margaritas.
Oh wow, okay. I had always learned that. I guess you had a better education than I did. Wow.
I paid for it.
Yeah, I always learned that Cinco de Mayo was when Santa Anna did 13 keg stands and wouldn't stop taking his top off.
Dude, and then that's when Colonel Sanders came down and Taco Bell was born.
There you go. That's how you get the KFC Taco Bell merger. Again, to a union of love that we should support, Two things that people said do not belong together, but God damn it, they made a beautiful thing together, haven't they?
Just like a couple of straight, bear-looking guys talking about gay people. That's another episode of Jaywalking.
This was a weird one. We jaywalked all over this street, back and forth, and never really got to where we were going.
I don't know where we were going, but we got there.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening. See you next time. Share it with a friend. Come on.